morning. Such a pleasure to be here in a wonderful community. Last year I had the pleasure to attend for the first time, and I promised myself I'm going to be on the stage, which I made it, so it's already a success. My name is Sergiu Petean. I'm the Director of Cloud Engineering and Operation at Allianz Direct. I'm also a very active member of CNCF and recently of ECUC, so European Coalition Group, working group. But enough about me, because today I want to introduce you to a company, the newest member of Allianz family, probably the newest. It was born 5 years ago, and it's a prodigy child with an exceptional childhood, because in less than 5 years, we managed to really have some amazing results. I can only mention that we are out on 5 different European markets. We are leading the insurance space on P&C, and we managed to grow basically from 0 to 1.2 gross written premiums in under actually 3 years, because then we started to make money. And we managed to scale from 0 to 2.4 million very happy customers. This is really something extraordinary. It's more like a miracle for Allianz. We are trying for a while to go in the direct selling on different markets, and we finally managed to do that very successfully. But today's story is not going to be about the business story. Obviously, we are not business people, we are IT people, and therefore I'm going to be focusing on the platform, the technical platform behind the business platform. And I do feel I'm the strong woman over here, because in order to be a romantic and sensitive business platform or business person and really capture all the value that the digital space can bring you, you have to have an equally successful platform engineering behind you in the public cloud, because we are talking about scaling it to several markets. How do you measure success of a platform engineering? Probably this is a 1 million question that I'm going to try to answer today. I have this my approach, which I'm probably presenting it for the first time in this shape. Last week I was talking a little bit about this in a different event, but I do believe this is going to grow. It's a living document, and any feedback from your side is going to be very much appreciated. I normally look at the following metrics when we are measuring what success is, and I was defending our spending cost on a very small platform engineering team in front of the board, and I needed some numbers. The following resonates a lot with both my teams, engineers teams, but also especially the business, which are our sponsors in the end. The first metric is the innovation driver. It's looking basically at the number of changes that we are enabling the whole organization to land now in all the environments we have. And here I'm looking at all the environments and all the changes. That means business changes, infrastructure changes, even changing the configuration and parameters of different setups. And I've seen a huge progress being realized over a period of 4 years. We went from 43,000 changes all the way to 100+ changes in 25. Probably it's going to be a little bit more. The second KPI is the security posture enabler, the CNAP way. We all know that security is non-negotiable, and it can break or make a success in a platform. Also, the cost and the other foundational qualities of a platform pretty much rely on the security posture. We had to enable this in 21, but we started measuring basically the impact on the team and the other stakeholders in 23, actually 24, and we managed to get to an interesting number of 1,282 security, high and critical vulnerabilities being found and fixed. The third metric is operational resilience. It's not anymore an advantage to be resilient. It's a must-have, especially in the financial sector, where we have now DORA regulation knocking at the door and demanding proofs, and of course, a certain posture that you must have on the resilience. We managed to avoid more than 500 disruptions this year, and we expect now this to improve over time. So imagine incidents, right? So we managed through observability and SRE to be alert in time and then have the reaction to avoid all these problems. Then we have the productivity boost that needs to be measured because all modern platform engineerings are coming probably from an IDP. And at the core of an IDP, it's always the productivity of engineers. We are not looking just at the engineers, we are looking at all the other stakeholders. So productivity matters a lot. And when we measure the number of support tickets that we received, and then we put a certain price tag behind every single ticket, and we realize that we save more than 2,000 PDs from around 700 engineers in a year. That's massive. The next one would be the scaling enabler, but not on the payloads. It's a scaling enabler potential on the FTE, so on the platform engineering team. And we were measuring this year, at least in this edition, against two stakeholders. One was against engineers, and the second one was about the total number of employees. So we have a ratio of 70 for engineers. So every single platform engineer, basically it's serving more than 70 engineers and more than 150 employees. The compliance, it's big for us. We are acting, again, Allianz in the financial sector, and we have several, too many, auditings coming in place, and sometimes at the same time. We have internal audit, then we have group auditing, then we have different regulators coming for us. And lately, we have more than 10 auditing being on the roadmap in 25. And so far, we are like in the previous years, 100% compliant. That's a big achievement. And then, of course, this is maybe one metric that could be a little bit seen as extreme, but we do believe that every single platform engineering is a product and needs to be treated as a profitable one, and therefore you have to become profitable. We managed to do that just this year. We got the mandate last year, and we realized we were losing some money. Nothing much, losing, in the sense that we were like creating a lot of value, but that value was not necessarily measured or quantified in a certain way. And since then, we started basically creating a platform of platforms and selling the platform to different stakeholders, and then also charging back to different consumers. And we realized we are profitable this year. So far, we are charging more than 1.4 million in profit. Altogether, we make around 5.6 million income. Reliability, there's no point discussing too much, has to be a foundational quality of any platform. And the way we are defining that is the lack of a P1 in our platform. And so far, we are doing very well. We are actually increasing year after year. We are currently at 99.5. And then the final KPI is the financial performance. This is something we're looking last year at, mainly because now you need to be able to speak the language of business, and you need to be able to have a certain conversation with your stakeholders, but mostly with your sponsors. And that means that you have to show the scaling effect, especially on price. And the way we measure that, we look at the amount of cost that we have with the platform team and also the tooling that we have. And then we measure that against the cost that we have. And the income that we get, plus the savings that we get. But today, I would like to focus a little bit more on how you can achieve success. With my experience in CNCF, where last year I was holding the official title of Technical Advisory Board member, I was leading the reference architecture group. And initially, we started with the assumption that we should probably define a certain standard or template or framework, call it as you want, for identifying reference architectures. And then we started talking to different end users. And what we realized early on was that the context matter and the journey is different because every organization has some specifics. You are acting in a different industry, different geography, you have a certain talent pool, you have a certain budget, you have some clients, customers that demand certain SLAs from you. And when you put it in a mix, then you have your own recipe. But we also realized there are some commonalities between all the successful stories that we managed to collect. And that's how I managed to write my own story. This is a 5-year story in Allianz Direct. And we realized that absolutely every single organization has challenges, really, really massive challenges that they have to overcome. And the way forward, almost always, is through communication. Communication between teams, and that can be very well expressed in topologies. So thank you, Manuel, for bringing the vocabulary to the world. It made it very easy for us to carry this conversation with so many other stakeholders. And of course, the bigger the challenge, the bigger the impact that you might have once you overcome the challenge. But of course, we learned early on that you need to measure the impact that you have. And the impact will be, again, on different stakeholders. So you need to measure the KPI for the stakeholder that needs to probably consume your platform, evolve your platform, and why not, at one point, even sponsor the platform if you decide to charge him back. So this is my story. I'm going to jump in some chapters. And I would like to start with the beginning in 21, when I joined Allianz Direct. I inherited a team that soon enough I realized it doesn't have the right identity. We were being perceived by many names and by many functions, and we were called IDP team, we were being called the SRE team, the DevOps team, you name it. And even internally, when I talked to my teams, we realized we don't have one single identity. So we had to fix that immediately. And we started working probably we spent more than 2 months in really talking about the principles that we want to work on, discovering the stack that we have, defining what DevOps is. Probably even today, if I'm going to ask you, we're going to have so many definitions of what DevOps means, what SRE means. So we had to make our own definition and have a common understanding. And another problem we had, other than the lack of identity, was that we had a lot of externals. We had great externals, but there is a certain model in Allianz where you can't retain externals for a very long time, so they were like keep rotating, and then basically you are not collecting the wisdom that they were like bringing, and you're just losing that wisdom again and again. There was no building on top of that. So I started immediately acting on identity, acting on different PR conversations with different stakeholders. We had to identify the stakeholders. We thought that engineers are our main stakeholders, but then when we look very close, we saw that at that particular point in time, security was the main stakeholders. Then compliance was the second one. And of course, the engineers were important, but they were not as political importantly as the other stakeholders. So we had to deal with that. And we actually perceived them not as someone that is bugging us, but we said, okay, they are really stakeholders. They're going to consume our services, so let's listen, let's build a backlog around them. And also, because now we have a backlog, we have to become not a cost center, what we have to become a product team that spends at least 50% of the time in working on the backlog. So the next thing was like, okay, other than the demands from our stakeholders, what do we actually want to build? So then we build our backlog by defining the reference architectures. We painted, I'm going to go probably here, spoke about this a little bit, and obviously we became this, but we also spent the time on reference architecture, which was extremely important for us because we had no idea what tooling we have. We didn't know how they are working together. And we painted 2 images of the same reference architecture. One was where we are today. Second was where do we want to be in 6 months from now. And the delta between the 2 destinations was our backlog. And we also decided early on to build this in a very light way and go for cloud native, open source. But when you look at the landscape in 21, how do you do that? How do you choose the right tool for the right problem that you have, and how do you build your internal capabilities and knowledge to actually do that by yourself? So we realized we need a companion. We became CNCF members, and honestly, the conversation we had with our peers in the CNCF were amazing. It was simply saving us from making some so very serious mistakes. Now, avoiding those mistakes that others might have made in the past. allowed us to be precise and not waste resources unnecessary. We had something like 6-8 months to prove the value before any actions could have been made against us. Now you have a limited budget, you have a certain pressure, so there is no time for failure. You have to be successful, and that's what we did. The first moment we proved our value was in a critical moment. We were going live on one of the markets, I believe Spain, and we decided to change the whole CI/CD while we were going and preparing the business code for being launched in a new market. And we migrated more than 200 Jenkins jobs that no one owns. Everybody ran away from them. We migrated them in Tekton back then. Now we're like using GitHub Actions. We're migrating slowly through that. But we also rebuilt the whole stack on a new infrastructure. Previously, we were using a different infrastructure. And we thought we were doing great. There was no downtime. But again, how do you measure greatness? No? So we look at DORA metrics, not DORA regulation, DORA metrics. And then we build a dashboard that allows us basically to get the KPIs that allows us to compare with the industry as a whole, not with Allianz, not with the insurance industry, but with the whole technology industry. And we realized that we are really doing good. We are among the 11% best performance. So we felt good, but that's not future-proof. No? How do you use these metrics to actually improve yourself even further? And when you make a change, how do you measure the impact of that change on overall metrics that you have here? So therefore, we moved a little bit beyond just seeing the metrics. We look at the patterns of releasing on a team level. And then when you put different teams on the same table and you look at velocity they have, some interesting findings you might get, and then also behind every team you can filter on actually every single change that you make, and you can look, it's a feature release, is it a bug release, is it the bug was found in which environment, so you can really look at all the patterns, and then when you choose the best team and you compare against, you see that they don't get stuck in pre-production because the quality is really good because they have a certain code coverage. So if you go and look at the successful patterns, you can reproduce that in other teams. And we saw some important changes happening in the way we release software. We measure against these things. This again is a business slide, as you can see. And the first question was like, what's in for me as a business? Now, I understand that we move fast. Now, innovation comes through change. We change fast. We failed not so often, and we recover very fast. Fine. But are we reliable? Because we have SLAs. Okay, we look at the reliability. Second was like, but how much does it cost us? And that's when I created the first financial performance KPI, and I was looking at the cost per change, but no one else was looking at this metric. So, okay, you have a 48, this was in 22, you have a 48 euro cost per change. Is that good? Is that bad? Do you have a reference? Do you have a best performer? No, we couldn't say that. We couldn't even compare ourselves with the previous years. Now we can, as you saw in the first slide, and these KPIs are now OKRs. So basically, business adopted them and made them organization-wide KPIs to be measured, and they are also part of the IT strategy. So quite an impact. And we also talked to security. As I said, they were the most active stakeholder back then. And we implemented shift left, right? The promise of software release and DevOps. But when we were using the default tooling, we had more than 100K high vulnerabilities. You can't shift with 100K on left. So we had to build our security intelligence, and we managed then to get to a decent amount of vulnerability, something like we have around 20 per week. So you have probably 2 or 3 vulnerabilities per team, which is something doable. We had some learnings from this phase. You might be in this phase. And some of them are the ones you see here. Like, of course, obvious, hire the best you can, but it's not so easy if you're not in the United States and you don't have unlimited budget. Then you have some restriction. You're on the market that you might simply not find the best engineers you want to have. So be creative, spend your time, make sure you get the best that you can get on the market. And they will be the gravitational point for the rest of the team, and the culture will be built around them. So this is probably the most important one. The other, of course, think about innovation sovereignty. If I get time, I'm gonna talk about that in the end as an important learning, but also really talk about identity, define one single identity in front of all the stakeholders and know your stakeholders very well. Next phase for us was, okay, let's serve more than engineers, software release and security. Let's talk to business, compliance, incident management. We saw them all as stakeholders, and we really had brainstorming with them together, to understand what they are interested on and what would be the numbers they want to have. But of course, once we got that, we realized we don't have the processes or the technology stack to actually, and the knowledge to actually realize that. So we went through an SRE, let's say, reorganization. We changed the stack quite fast. We had to adapt the stack. We stayed with our initial purpose, was open source, cloud native. And the problem was that we had now the process, we had the stack, but no one was actually using it the way we wanted to use, because the organization was also scaling. So we had to build one dedicated team outside of the DevOps team, focusing on that for a while. I'm going to talk about the concepts of DDoS soon, distributed DevOps. But we also realized that with the scaling that the company is planning, we will never be successful in, again, because of the talent availability on the market, we will never be capable of scaling the internal team to sustain that. So we started building the role of federated SRE. I negotiated with business 20% of the time of every single squad to be spent on operational requests. And then I created a community of, we call it federated DevOps nowadays, not just SRE, because they evolved. And we started the program of 8 months to actually train them. And with that, we also gave them way more access to the platform, because the dream of the platform was always make it self-service. But you make it self-service to someone that knows how to use it. And now with this initiative, we managed really to have the community and build the knowledge for them to be self-sufficient in a lot of cases. We measure that, of course. Again, don't break your eyes, but we are looking at the APIs. We build SLOs. We are looking at probes to look at the external dependencies we had. And of course, the SLOs became part of the OKRs. So it became mandatory for everyone to spend that 20% of the time on the operations. Next for us was to apply the reverse Conway maneuver. So we had to evolve again, because with the current setup, the cognitive load of the teams was insane. Imagine you have to grow the team, you hire 1 or 2 engineers in the DevOps team, but for them to be able to grasp and understand the process, the stack, it was a mission impossible. You needed maybe 1 year to keep them on a line to learn all that before they can actually contribute to the team. So then, because of these forces, we decided to create, to reflect the team structure in DDoS, distributed DevOps. So basically, these are teams which are focusing on a domain for a short time. This is important. And then you have different roles. You have students that have to get the knowledge, let's say in 6 months. You have executors that really execute the task. And then you have consultants, because once you get the knowledge, you become consultant and steer the direction and help the others to be more productive. But then you also have to get the holistic view of the platform. Platform is a product, so you have to steer it as a holistic view. Now, if you change something in CI/CD, it will break the metrics, it will break the SRE. So you have to understand the implication of any change. So the teams are now rotating to DDoS, and the technical leads, you're going to see in a while. This is the overview setup of the DDoS. And the teams themselves, when we are talking about the targets, we are talking about how well do they actually cover the stack that we have. The one you see here on the left, it's a profile of a technical lead. And so far, we have managed to build 3 of those technical leads, and they are growing through mentorship, all the others. And the targets for every single engineer is to cover as much as they can. So the conversation is like, you're now a 2 on a CI/CD, you have to be, by the end of the year, you have to be a 3. What 3 means, we have a certain scale on how well you perform, and the whole team, it's actually evaluating the others. So it's not one single person deciding that you're a 2 or a 3, but the person you're working with, they go through a survey and they say, okay, this is how you performed last year, and this is where you need to improve. Again, we have here the OKRs because we started impacting seriously the whole organization, all the stakeholders. So the OKRs became the golden paths for us. And we had some learnings. I have 5 more minutes, so I'm going to go a little bit faster through this. I'm going to get to my last slide. Main lesson probably it's about the cognitive load, but also the need to have the holistic view around the product, which is your platform engineering, most likely. And of course, building an army of fans, the federated DevOps, because we scaled again from 100 engineers to 700 engineers, and from 300 employees to 1,600 we are right now. So there's no way you can keep up with that. Next phase for us was, of course, to impact now, because I believe the success accelerates and really emphasize your impact. So we were demanded to consult and build platform engineering for the group. There is a huge program going on. So basically, we brought our expertise, our knowledge, and we built the future platform for the biggest program of the group. So suddenly, and we could not replicate completely the stack that we had, and we didn't want it because we used a different technology. We were based initially on Kubernetes, and then we did it because of the global scale. We built it on Fargate, so serverless, so it had to be differently, but we reused, of course, the same approach, same talent, and the same code in most of the cases. But suddenly we became not owners of one platform, but owners of 3 platforms, and we didn't scale the team. Basically the same team, same 10 people, 11 people, hands-on, they were now owning 3 different platforms. So how do you manage that? Again, through topology, through communication. We managed to really become more effective at our work. We realized that there are things that we shouldn't do. Those 10 people are extremely valuable. They should not do support. They should not do access management, and they should probably not do incidents. They do 24/7, that's enough, but they probably need the first level support between them and the end customers. So we really created new structures that can shield them from the noise so they can focus on the 3 platforms, maybe more to come in the future. And that so far is working great for us. Again, some more learnings, because these OKRs now are usable for, again, 3 platforms. They have a little bit different flavors. Availability has to be measured for every single tenant that we have. And some learnings, again, on this phase. It's very important to become an influencer for the whole group, ideally, because that's when someone is making a decision, an architecture decision. Your voice needs to be strongly accepted in that room. Otherwise, you're going to inherit some code that is not compatible with your platform, or you're going to inherit a certain operational model that simply doesn't fit with what you have built. So myself, I built, for example, the whole operational model for the new program that we have in BMP, and mainly because we knew what we are talking, and we saw with 5 years of experience which are the problems you normally face. I'm done with the journey, so I want to bring 2 important lessons. First lesson is a definition, if you allow me, of platform engineering. I do believe it's more has to do with experience of all stakeholders than actually the tools and the processes. If you focus on that experience and you include all your stakeholders from the beginning, then it's so much easier to evolve and get, I would say, the budget and the support you need to have. This would be a reference architecture on our end, the idea of seeing it as a product and prioritizing the experience. And my second lesson would be around a concept of innovation sovereignty. The relation between the other sovereignties, because I know 3, maybe there are more, but there is like the state sovereignty, about state. And then you have the digital sovereignty, that it's about reflecting your state sovereignty in the digital realm. And the third one, it's about, very simply put, about the capacity to create. And navigate the new revolutions coming. Now we are navigating on the AI revolution. So if you don't have talent in-house, if you don't know how to operate in cloud, because AI will happen in cloud, with APIs and so on, and we'll have SLAs and operational qualities, there's no way you can do that in a proper way. To exemplify a little bit each one of them, I would say this is the state one, state sovereignty. The fight on Greenland with Denmark and USA. Then we have what happened in Germany a few weeks ago, where Google Maps had a bug, and everyone was stuck in traffic for hours. It's a simple service owned by someone else that you have nothing to do, and yet has such an impact on your life. No? You have to think about why digital sovereignty it's a must-have. And of course, the last one, it's about innovation sovereignty, that it's more than having internal team of engineers, but it's also about having an ecosystems and everything that sustain that innovation. Thank you very much.